space-time. It is a masterpiece of human engineering. But there is one thing the engineers didn't account for. They didn't account for a specific spot on the Earth's surface possessing a gravitational pull so intense, so localized, and so unnatural that it breaks the relativity equations. They didn't account for the Caucasus Anomaly. Let's look at the crime scene. The Caucasus, the barrier between Europe and Asia. A wall of rock where the ancient Greeks believed Prometheus was chained to a mountain for stealing fire from the gods. It is a place of geological violence. Here, the Arabian tectonic plate is smashing into the Eurasian plate, crumpling the Earth's crust like a car wreck in slow motion. It is a land of earthquakes, volcanoes, and deep, dark valleys that see sunlight for only an hour a day. Geologists love this place. It's a puzzle box of strata and mineral veins. But in 2018, independent surveyors began noticing something strange in the raw data logs of equipment flying over a specific sector of the Greater Caucasus Range. It started with small things. Nuisances. Digital compasses drifting 5 degrees north for no reason. Altimeters on drones reading ground level as being lower than sea level, even when flying over a mountain range. Imagine being a surveyor in the field. You are standing on solid rock. Your eyes tell you that you are on a mountain, but your instruments, machines that do not lie, are telling you that you are underground. You assume it's the equipment. You always assume it's the equipment. You swap the batteries. You reboot the software. You curse the manufacturer. But when 3 different machines from 3 different manufacturers all start hallucinating at the exact same longitude, you stop blaming the tech. You start looking at the ground. We are taught in school that gravity is a constant. We are given a number, 9.8 meters per second squared. We are told that if you drop a ball in London, it falls at the same speed as a ball dropped in Tokyo. But that is a simplification. Gravity is not smooth. The Earth is not a perfect sphere. It's a lumpy, uneven potato of rock and magma. If you stand over a massive iron deposit, you weigh slightly more. If you stand over a hollow cavern, you weigh slightly less. The density of the ground beneath your feet changes the pull of the Earth. We call these gravity anomalies. They are normal. We use them to find oil. We use them to find gold. But what the sensors found in the Caucasus wasn't normal. When the data from the Aero 7 and subsequent flights was analyzed, it revealed a gravitational signature that shouldn't exist in nature. Imagine a swimming pool. The water is flat. Now, imagine you pulled a drain plug at the bottom. The water swirls down, creating a depression, a vortex. That is what the gravity map showed over this specific coordinate, a vortex. A hole in the gravitational field of the planet. But here is the twist. To create a gravity well that deep and that localized, you need mass. Immense, concentrated mass. According to the math, buried approximately 4 miles beneath the crust of this mountain range, there is an object, or a substance roughly 10 times denser than lead. It is heavier than gold, heavier than tungsten. It is pulling on the GPS satellite signals. It is warping the radio waves just like a black hole bends light. The Aero 7 didn't get lost. It was pulled toward the center of the Earth by a ghost hand, and this creates a paradox, a glitch in the matrix of modern geology. If this were a natural deposit of heavy metals, the gravity field would be diffuse. It would spread out like a gentle hill. A natural formation roots deep into the crust, it tapers off. But the data shows hard edges. The anomaly starts abruptly and ends abruptly. It has geometry. It has walls. Nature rarely builds in straight lines. Nature doesn't build perfectly spherical gravity wells. Nature doesn't concentrate mass with that kind of precision. So, we are left with a terrifying set of options. Option 1. Our understanding of physics is fundamentally broken, and gravity can behave in ways we have never seen before. Option 2. There is something down there, something massive, something that doesn't belong on the periodic table. A material so dense it shouldn't be able to exist in the Earth's crust, without sinking to the core. Or, option 3. Option 3 is the one that keeps the scientists up at night. It's not a rock, it's a machine, and it's still switched on. Tonight, we are going to tear apart the map. We are going to look at the data that the geological journals refused to publish because it was too weird. We are going to explore the possibility that the Caucasus Mountains are hiding a secret that predates human history. We are going to ask the question, why does the most advanced navigation system on Earth refuse to fly over these coordinates? Is it a natural freak of physics, or is it a warning? This is Uncharted Mysteries Decoded, and we are entering the blind spot. To understand the anomaly, we first have to understand the rulebook that it is breaking. We have to look at the geoid, the ghost shape of the Earth, that dictates everything from the tides to the flight path of nuclear missiles. Because once you see how the Earth should look, you will never sleep soundly again, knowing what it actually looks like beneath the surface. Let's descend into the weight of the world. To understand why a billion-dollar satellite network is failing over a remote stretch of mountains, we first have to unlearn a lie. It is a lie you were told in kindergarten, repeated in high school, and reinforced every time you looked at a globe in a library. The lie is that the Earth is round. It isn't. Not really. If you were to strip away the oceans, drain the seas, and look at the raw rock of our planet, you wouldn't see a perfect marble. You would see a potato. You would see a scarred, lumpy, uneven rock, bulging at the equator and flattened at the poles. It is covered in warts of mountain ranges and pockmarked with the deep scars of ocean trenches. This shape has a name. Science calls it the geoid. And the geoid is the ghost map that dictates our reality. Most people assume gravity is a constant. We are taught that if you drop an apple, it accelerates at exactly 9.8 meters per second squared. We treat that number like a commandment carved in stone. But it's not. Gravity is a variable. It changes depending on where you stand. If you stand on top of a massive iron deposit, you actually weigh slightly more than if you stand over a hollow limestone cavern. The Earth pulls on you harder where there is more mass. Usually, these changes are microscopic. You would never feel them, but your GPS feels them. Your GPS satellites are orbiting in freefall, surfing the gravitational waves of the planet. When they fly over a dense part of the Earth, they dip. When they fly over a light part, they lift. To navigate the world, we have to map these dips and lifts with obsessive precision. That is what makes the Caucasus data so terrifying. When we look at the standard gravity map of the Earth, we see gentle gradients. A mountain range creates a high gravity zone, but it's diffuse. It spreads out like honey on a table. The rock of the mountain roots deep into the crust, and the gravity signal rises and falls smoothly over hundreds of miles. That is what nature looks like. Nature is messy. Nature is gradual. But when we turn our sensors toward the anomaly in the Caucasus, the gradient disappears. Let's look at the raw numbers. In geophysics, we measure gravity anomalies in units called milligauss. A typical large mountain range might generate a positive anomaly of 100 to 200 milligauss. It's a significant bump, but it's expected. The readings from the blind spot aren't 200 milligauss. In the center of the zone, sensors have recorded spikes exceeding 600 milligauss. Do you understand the sheer physical impossibility of that number? For a natural geological formation to create a pull that intense, you would need a mountain made of solid lead, twice the size of Everest. But there is no mountain there. There is just a valley. This means the mass isn't on the surface. It's buried, and it is dense. When geologists first saw the data, they assumed it was a mass concentration. We see these on the moon all the time. Beneath the lunar seas, there are massive lumps of heavy asteroid metal buried from ancient impacts. They pull on spacecraft so hard that if you don't correct for them, your orbit decays and you crash. But on Earth? On Earth, the crust is constantly recycling itself. Plate tectonics usually melt these heavy spots down, dispersing them into the mantle like chocolate melting in milk. A discrete, hyperdense lump shouldn't survive in the Earth's crust for millions of years. And yet, there it is. So, let's strip away the atmosphere and look at the math of what lies beneath. Based on the deflection of the satellite signals and the readings from ground-based gravimeters, we can construct a 3D model of the object. And this is where the glitch stops being a curiosity and starts being a nightmare. If this were a natural deposit, say, a massive upwelling of magma that cooled into iron, it would be shaped like a mushroom or a tear. It would have organic, flowing edges. The Caucasus Anomaly doesn't flow. It has edges. Sharp, distinct boundaries. The gravity field is essentially flat for miles, and then, within a span of less than 500 meters, it drops off a cliff. It's the difference between walking down a hill and walking off the edge of a building. The density shift is so abrupt that it suggests a containment. It suggests that whatever is down there is distinct from the rock around it. It is not integrated into the geology, it is imprisoned within it. We call this a negative buoyancy zone. The object is so heavy that, by all laws of geophysics, it should have sunk. It should have ripped through the crust and plunged into the Earth's mantle millions of years ago. But it hasn't. It is suspended there 4 miles down, defying the very liquidity of the planet's interior. Why is it staying put? What is holding it up? This brings us to the real-world impact. We talk about satellites, but the impossible gravity of the Caucasus isn't just a problem for machines in space. It is a problem for anyone who walks the ground. For decades, there have been whispers from the people who work in these mountains. Not the locals with their folklore, we'll get to them later, but the modern industrial workers, the pipe layers, the miners, the survey teams. I want to read you a report from a survey engineer who worked on a failed tunneling project in the region in 2012. The project was abandoned due to unforeseen geological hardness, but the engineer's personal log tells a different story. He wrote, "It wasn't the rock. The rock was standard basalt. It was the tools. The laser levels wouldn't hold a line. We would calibrate them, and 10 minutes later, the bubble would drift. We were drilling straight, but the drill heads kept veering downward as if the Earth itself was pulling the bit off course." And the silence. The deeper we drilled, the more the radio equipment failed. Not static, just dead air. It felt like the mountain was absorbing the waves. This is consistent with the physics of extreme gravity wells. A gravity well this powerful doesn't just pull on mass, it affects the propagation of energy. It creates a lensing effect. Think about a compass. It relies on the Earth's magnetic field. But we know that massive, dense rotating objects can create frame-dragging effects that twist magnetic fields. Pilots flying small aircraft through the valleys near the Anomaly have reported the lean. You're flying level, the horizon looks flat, but your inner ear screams that you are banking. You feel heavy in your seat, like you're in a high G-turn, but the instruments say you're flying straight. This is vertigo induced by a gravitational microclimate. Your body, the oldest biological sensor you have, detects the pull before your eyes do. You are flying through a ripple in space-time. Now, mainstream science has tried to explain this away. They have to. The alternative is too disruptive. The standard explanation is what they call the tectonic slab theory. The idea is that a slab of the oceanic crust got shoved under the mountains and didn't melt. Cold, dense rock sitting in hot, light rock. It's a safe theory. It fits the textbooks. It comforts the academics who need the world to make sense. But there is a hole in that theory, a hole the size of the anomaly itself. Tectonic slabs are made of silicate and basalt. They have a density of about 3.0 grams per cubic centimeter. The surrounding rock is about 2.7. That difference creates a gravity bump, sure. But to get the readings we are seeing, a 600 milligauss spike, the density of the buried object would need to be closer to 10 or 12 grams per cubic centimeter. Do you know what has a density of 12? Lead, palladium, thorium. To accept the tectonic slab theory, you have to believe that a slab of pure heavy metal, perfectly shaped with geometric borders, somehow evolved naturally in the Earth's crust. You have to believe that nature accidentally built a vault. And that is where the science stops and the mystery begins. Because if geology cannot explain the density, and if physics cannot explain the suspension, we have to stop looking at rocks and start looking at history. We have to ask, is it possible that this gravity well isn't a formation? Is it possible that it is a signature? When we scan the Great Pyramid of Giza with muons, subatomic particles that act like X-rays, we find voids. We find hidden chambers because the density of the air is different from the density of the stone. We're doing the same thing here, but on a planetary scale. The Earth is the stone. The anomaly is the chamber. But instead of being empty, this chamber is full. Full of what? If we look at the specific coordinates of the anomaly, we find that they align with disturbing precision to ancient megalithic sites on the surface. Ruins that archaeologists claim are unrelated, mere piles of stone from the Bronze Age. But is it a coincidence that the cultures who lived on top of this anomaly worshipped the black sun? Is it a coincidence that their myths speak of a heavy star that fell from the sky and buried itself in the mountain, creating a gateway to the underworld? We usually dismiss myths as stories, but sometimes a myth is just data that we haven't learned how to decode yet. What if the heavy star wasn't a metaphor? What if it was an observation? The deeper we look into the data, the more it looks like something is running down there. There is one final piece of data from the Aero 7 flight that was scrubbed from the official report. I obtained it from a source within the analysis team. Just before the drone lost navigation, the gravimeter didn't just record a high density. It recorded a fluctuation. For 3 seconds, the gravity well pulsed. Rocks don't pulse. Mountains don't breathe. If the mass down there is shifting, if the density is changing in real time, then we are not dealing with a mineral deposit. We are dealing with active physics. We are dealing with energy generation. Imagine a hydroelectric dam. The water spins the turbines. The energy is massive. Now imagine a dam that harnesses gravity itself, a machine that uses the crushing weight of the Earth to generate power, or perhaps to anchor something in place. If such a machine existed, buried miles beneath the rock, its exhaust wouldn't be smoke. Its signature wouldn't be heat. Its signature would be a distortion of gravity. We are looking at the smoke coming from a chimney, but we are terrified to ask what is burning in the fireplace. So, we have a location. We have a measurement. We have a mathematical impossibility. And we have a pulse. The scientists say anomaly. The geologists say subduction zone. But as we peel back the layers of history in the Caucasus, we are going to find that the ancients had a different name for it. They didn't call it a gravity well, they called it the Iron Heart. And according to the legends, the Iron Heart isn't just heavy, it's waiting. In the next segment, we are going to leave the comfort of the control room. We are going to go down to the surface, into the silence of the stones. We are going to confront the mainstream explanation head-on and show you why the geometric precision of this anomaly proves that nature had nothing to do with it. We are going to prove that the lie of the map is covering up a truth that changes everything we know about human history. Stay with us. We are just scratching the surface. When you stare at a mystery long enough, it usually blinks. Usually, if you throw enough data, enough PhDs, and enough supercomputer time at a problem, the anomaly dissolves. It turns out to be a sensor error, a math mistake, or a rare but explainable weather pattern. Science is designed to kill mysteries. It is designed to domesticate the unknown and put it in a textbook. But the Caucasus anomaly hasn't blinked. For 5 years, it has stared back at us, cold and unmoving. And the harder we look at it, the more the standard explanations crumble into dust. In the last segment, we established the what. We know there is a hyperdense mass buried 4 miles beneath the mountains. We know it is heavy enough to bend the path of satellites. We know it pulses. Now, we have to deal with the why. And to do that, we have to listen to the argument between the skeptics and the believers. Because right now, there is a quiet war happening in the geophysics community regarding these coordinates. On one side, you have the mainstream, the establishment. These are the geologists who work for the state, the mining conglomerates, and the universities. Their job is to make sure the world makes sense. They look at the gravity map, they see the red bullseye of extreme density, and they offer the safe hypothesis. They call it the ophiolite abduction model. It sounds technical, but it's actually quite simple. They argue that millions of years ago, when the tectonic plates smashed together to form these mountains, a massive chunk of the Earth's mantle, the deep, heavy, iron-rich layer beneath the crust, got sliced off and shoved upward. Imagine a car crash where the engine of one car ends up in the back seat of the other. That is the theory. They say we are just looking at a misplaced engine, a fossil of the planetary collision that built the Caucasus. It is a comforting theory. It fits the timeline. It uses words we understand. It allows us to close the file and say, case closed. It's just a big rock. But there is a problem with the ophiolite model, a problem that the independent researchers keep pointing out and the establishment keeps ignoring. The problem is the shape. Nature is messy. Nature is chaotic. When tectonic plates collide, they don't cut in straight lines. They crumble, they fold, they shatter. If you look at a cross-section of a mountain range, it looks like a layer cake that has been dropped on the floor. The boundaries are blurred. The density shifts gradually from light rock to heavy rock. But the gravity data from the blind spot doesn't show a blur. It shows a box. I want you to visualize the data we discussed earlier. When we map the gradient of the gravity well, the rate at which the pull changes, we see something that shouldn't exist in geology. We see a step function. You are walking along a flat gravity plane, and then, bam, you drop off a cliff. The density skyrockets over a distance of a few hundred meters, holds perfectly steady for 3 miles, and then drops back to normal just as abruptly. That is not a fold. That is not a crash. That is a wall. If this were a natural upwelling of mantle rock, the edges would be ragged. They would be diffuse. But the mathematical model of the anomaly suggests a structure with defined geometric borders. We have to ask ourselves a very dangerous question. Since when does nature build in perfect rectangles 4 miles underground? Since when does a tectonic collision create a structure with the geometric precision of a microchip? The skeptics try to pivot. They say, okay, maybe it's not a tectonic slab. Maybe it's a magmatic intrusion. Theory B, the volcano theory. The idea is that a bubble of liquid magma rose up from the core, melted a cavity in the crust, and then cooled down, forming a solid plug of iron and nickel, a pluton. Again, it sounds plausible until you check the thermal scans. If there were a massive plug of cooling magma that close to the surface, the ground would be hot. We would see thermal blooming on the infrared satellite passes. We would see hot springs. We would see steam vents. But the blind spot is cold. In fact, it is anomalously cold. The thermal inertia of the ground above the gravity well is lower than the surrounding mountains. It's not radiating heat, it's absorbing it. So, we have a heavy object that has sharp, artificial edges. It is magnetically shielded. It is colder than it should be. And it is heavier than any known natural rock formation. When you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And the truth is that the geology textbooks are useless here. The rocks aren't telling us the story. So, let's stop looking at the rocks. Let's look at the surface. Because while the scientists are arguing over density charts in air-conditioned offices, the people who actually walk into that valley tell a very different story. We spoke to a local guide, a man who has spent 40 years hunting and tracking in the deep valleys of the Greater Caucasus. He won't take tourists to the blind spot anymore. He calls it the Silent Valley. He told us, the first thing you notice is the birds. There aren't any. You walk through the forest and the air is loud with life. And then you cross a ridge and it cuts out. No birdsong, no insects, just the wind. Animals perceive the world through magnetic fields and vibrations that we can't feel. They know when the earth is wrong. Migratory paths of deer and wolves bend around this specific coordinate. They treat the open valley like a physical wall. And then there is the fog. Pilots call it the lens, but the locals call it the gray time. Weather patterns in this specific valley have a habit of stalling. Clouds don't drift through, they get snagged. They swirl in a tight, counterclockwise rotation, sitting over the anomaly for days, even when the wind at the peaks is blowing 40 knots. It looks like the atmosphere itself is being tethered to the ground. And if you walk into that fog with a compass, the needle dies. It doesn't just point north, it points down. This is a phenomenon known as magnetic dip, usually found only at the north and south poles. But here, in the middle of a temperate mountain range, the magnetic field lines are being sucked vertically into the earth. This confirms that the object below isn't just heavy, it is magnetic. It is acting like a massive solenoid, a coil of wire generating a field so strong it overrides the Earth's own magnetosphere. So, we have a silent forest, a magnetic drain, a gravity well, and a geometric shape buried in the dark. If science can't explain it, maybe we are asking the wrong experts. Maybe we shouldn't be asking geologists. Maybe we should be asking archaeologists. Because humans have lived in the Caucasus for thousands of years. And if there is a monster buried in the basement, the people living in the house usually know about it. It turns out, the ancients didn't just know about the anomaly. They built a warning sign on top of it. If you scour the forests of the Western Caucasus, you will find thousands of strange stone structures. They're called dolmens. These aren't just piles of rocks. These are precision-engineered megalithic huts. Huge slabs of sandstone, weighing tons, fitted together with such accuracy that you cannot slide a knife blade between the joints. Some of them are trapezoidal, some are hexagonal, but they all share one defining feature: a perfect circular porthole carved into the front slab. Archaeologists, the mainstream ones, will tell you these are tombs. They will tell you that primitive Bronze Age tribes built them to bury their dead. But there is a flaw in that theory, a massive one. In the vast majority of these dolmens, no bodies have ever been found, no bones, no grave goods, no signs of habitation. If they aren't tombs and they aren't houses, what are they? Look at the construction again. The stone is massive. The chamber is small and hollow. The hole in the front is perfectly circular. Any sound engineer will look at that design and tell you exactly what it is. It's not a tomb, it's a Helmholtz resonator. It is an acoustic chamber designed to amplify a specific frequency of sound. When you map the locations of these dolmens, they aren't scattered randomly. They form lines, they form grids. And the highest concentration of these stone speakers, the largest and most complex ones, are clustered around the edges of our gravity anomaly. Why? Why would a civilization 5,000 years ago build thousands of acoustic resonators around a valley where gravity is broken? There is a fringe theory, one that usually gets you laughed out of university lecture halls, but it is the only one that fits the physical evidence. The theory is that the dolmens weren't built to amplify the voice of the people. They were built to amplify the voice of the Earth. We know that high-gravity zones create piezoelectric stress in quartz-rich rock. When you squeeze a quartz crystal, it generates electricity. When you squeeze millions of tons of quartz rock with a gravity anomaly, you generate a massive, low-frequency hum, an infrasound vibration that rises up from the ground. You and I can't hear infrasound, but we can feel it. It causes anxiety. It causes nausea. It causes a sense of dread. Perhaps the ancients felt the fear of the valley. Perhaps they felt the vibration of the machine buried beneath them. And perhaps they built the dolmens not to worship it, but to dampen it, or maybe to harness it. There are legends in the Caucasus stories passed down through the oral traditions of the Adish people about the Iron Giants. The legends say that before the Great Flood, there was a war between the Narts, giant heroes, and a civilization that lived inside the mountain. The stories speak of weapons that could shake the stars and make the birds fall from the sky. They speak of a city of iron that was not built, but sunk. Usually, we dismiss these as fairy tales. Giants are metaphors for earthquakes. Iron cities are metaphors for volcanoes. But look at the data from the Aero 7 drone again. Look at the gravity map. Look at the square edges of the anomaly. Does that look like a volcano to you? Or does it look like a sunken city? The mainstream says it's a rock. The legend says it's a fortress. But there is a third possibility, one that bridges the gap between the primitive past and the high-tech future. If you look at the geometric precision of the gravity well, and you compare it to the layout of a modern particle accelerator, the resemblance is terrifying. A particle accelerator, like the Large Hadron Collider, is essentially a massive ring of magnets buried underground, designed to smash atoms together to unlock the secrets of the universe. It requires immense density, immense shielding, and immense cooling. Is it possible that we are looking at technology? Not our technology, but technology nonetheless? In the next part of this investigation, we are going to leave the geologists behind. Their tools are too blunt for this. We are going to open the history books that have been sealed for centuries. We are going to explore Hypothesis A, the ancient power core. We are going to ask if the Caucasus Mountains are actually the casing for a machine that was left running when the Ice Age ended. A machine that is broken, glitching, and pulling our satellites out of the sky because it is trying to restart. And if it does restart, what happens to us? The silence of the stones is about to be broken. Arthur C. Clarke famously wrote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. If you took a modern smartphone and traveled back in time 5,000 years to ancient Sumeria, you would be a god. You hold a slab of black glass that glows with light, speaks with the voices of distant men, and remembers everything it sees. The Sumerians wouldn't call it a microprocessor. They wouldn't call it radio waves. They would call it magic. They would build a temple around it. Now, reverse the timeline. Imagine a civilization that existed 5,000, 10,000, maybe 12,000 years ago. A civilization that didn't obsess over silicon and digital codes like we do, but instead mastered the physics of stone, vibration, and gravity. If they left a machine behind, a massive industrial piece of infrastructure buried deep in the earth, would we recognize it as technology? Or would we look at the strange readings on our instruments, scratch our heads, and call it a geological anomaly? We are looking at the Caucasus gravity well through the lens of modern science. We are looking for oil, or tectonic plates, or asteroids. But what if we are looking at the rusting engine block of a civilization we have forgotten? In this segment, we are going to explore Hypothesis A, the ancient power core. We are going to take the data from the satellites, the geometric shape, the magnetic shielding, the gravity pulses, and overlay it with the magic of the people who live there. And when we do, the pieces start to fit together with a terrifying click. To understand what might be buried under that valley, we have to look at the Nart sagas. These are the ancient epic tales of the Caucasus region. The Adig, the Ossetians, the Abkhazians, they all share these stories. Historians usually dismiss them as folklore, just colorful stories about giants and heroes fighting monsters. But the Nart sagas are different from Greek or Roman mythology. They don't focus on gods living in the clouds drinking wine. They focus on iron. The central figure of these sagas is a being named Telepshi. He is the god of the forge, the lord of iron. But Telepsh didn't just make swords and shields. The legends say he built machines that moved on their own. They say he forged a bridge of iron that could reach the sky. There is one specific legend that stands out. It tells of a time when the Earth was unstable. The mountains were shaking and the sky was drifting away. The world was coming apart. So, Tlepsh went to the center of the world. He forged a massive iron nail, a pillar of stability, and he drove it deep into the heart of the mountain. He riveted the earth to the sky to stop the shaking. Let's translate that from magic to technology. Riveting the earth to the sky. What does a GPS satellite do? It tethers the ground to the sky using invisible beams of energy. What does a gravity well do? It creates a heavy, stable point in the crust. Is it possible that the iron nail of Tlepsh wasn't a metaphor? Is it possible that the shaking of the world was a cataclysmic geological event? A pole shift, a crustal displacement? And this civilization built a mechanism to stabilize the local gravity field? An inertial dampener on a planetary scale? If you bury a mass that is 10 times denser than lead, and you spin it, or you charge it, you create a gyroscopic effect. You create an anchor. Suddenly, the impossible density reading of 600 milligoules makes sense. It's not a rock, it's a ballast. But the Caucasus isn't an isolated incident. If this is ancient technology, it is part of a network. When we look at the great megalithic sites of the world, the pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, Teotihuacan in Mexico, the temples of Angkor Wat, we tend to study them in isolation. We look at the pyramids as tombs. We look at Stonehenge as a calendar. But for decades, alternative researchers have pointed out that these sites are not random. If you draw a line around the globe connecting these sites, they form a mathematical grid, a world grid. And the engineering at these sites shares a common, unexplained DNA, the manipulation of massive weight. Look at the trilithons at Baalbek in Lebanon. Stone blocks weighing 1,200 tons. That is the equivalent of 3 fully loaded Boeing 747s. Modern cranes, the biggest ones we have, struggle to lift that kind of weight. And yet, the ancients didn't just lift them. They moved them miles from the quarry and placed them with laser precision. Historians tell us they used ropes, logs, and thousands of slaves. They tell us they just pulled really hard. But try to pull a 1,000-ton block over soft ground with ropes. The ropes snap. The logs get crushed to pulp. The physics doesn't work. Unless the weight wasn't the problem. What if the blocks weren't heavy? If you possess a technology that can manipulate gravity, a technology like the one pulsing beneath the Caucasus, then weight becomes a variable. You don't need cranes. You need a frequency. You need to tune the stone so that it decouples from the Earth's pull. This brings us back to the dolmens, those thousands of stone speakers surrounding the Caucasus anomaly. In part 3, we discussed how they act as acoustic resonators. Now, imagine they are part of the machine. If the gravity well is the reactor, the dolmens are the control lines. Maybe they weren't built to dampen the sound. Maybe they were built to focus it. A network of thousands of amplifiers, channeling resonance into the central core to modulate the gravity field. We aren't looking at a tomb, we are looking at a control panel. But if this is technology, where did the builders go? And why is the machine buried? The geological record tells us that around 12,800 years ago, the Earth went through a violent reset, the Younger Dryas boundary. We see evidence of massive floods, rapid freezing, and global firestorms. It was an extinction-level event that wiped out the megafauna, the mammoths, the saber-toothed cats, and likely any advanced human civilization that existed at the time. If you knew the end was coming, if you knew a comet was about to strike the ice caps and drown the world, what would you do? You would bunker down. You would bury your most precious technology deep underground to protect it from the surface cataclysm. You would put the iron heart into sleep mode. You would turn off the gravity anchor, but you wouldn't destroy it. You would leave it waiting. And this is where the story shifts from archaeology to immediate danger. Because the data suggests that the machine isn't dead, it's dormant, and it might be waking up. Remember the glitch that downed the Arrow 7 drone? Remember the pulse? A rock doesn't pulse. A machine pulses. For thousands of years, the anomaly has been relatively stable, a constant, heavy pull. But in the last decade, the readings have become erratic. The silence of the stones is being broken by bursts of gravitational noise. Why now? Maybe it's automatic. A timer set 12,000 years ago that is finally ticking down to zero. Or maybe we are waking it up. We are blasting the Earth with radar. We are drilling deep into the crust for oil and gas. We are detonating nuclear devices underground for testing. Perhaps one of our signals hit the right frequency. Perhaps we knocked on the door and something down there is answering. If the iron heart is a stabilizer, that's good news. Maybe it will help us weather the coming climate changes. But what if it's not a stabilizer? In the Nord sagas, Telepsh also forged weapons. He forged the thunderbolt. He forged the sword that cuts the mountain. What if the gravity well isn't a shield? What if it's a weapon? A gravity weapon doesn't use explosives. It uses the fabric of space-time. If you can focus gravity into a beam, you can crush a city into the size of a marble. You can tear a tectonic plate in half. You can pull a satellite out of orbit and slam it into the ground. The Arrow Psi 7 was just a fly buzzing too close to the bug zapper. There is a concept in engineering called the black box. When you find a device you don't understand, you look at the inputs and the outputs. Input: modern radar signals and ground vibrations. Output: gravitational distortion and magnetic anomalies. The black box is processing. The hard drive is spinning up. The fans are turning on. And we're standing on top of it, arguing about rocks. We've explored the idea that this is human technology, advanced, ancient, but ultimately terrestrial, a legacy of a lost golden age. But there is another possibility, a darker one. The tectonic slab theory relies on geology. The ancient machine theory relies on archaeology. But there is a third theory that relies on astrophysics. Because the element required to create a gravity well this intense, the density required to bend space-time like this, doesn't exist on the periodic table. Not on Earth, at least. In the Nart legends, Telepsh didn't find the iron in the ground. He caught it. He caught a star that fell from the heavens. He didn't build the machine. He built a cage for something that arrived here from the dark between the stars. In the next segment, we are going to look up. We are going to explore Hypothesis B, the ultra-dense element. We are going to talk about strange matter. We are going to talk about neutron stars. And we are going to ask the question, what if the anomaly isn't a machine and isn't a rock? What if it is a prisoner? And what happens if the prison walls are finally starting to crack? The gravity is rising, and we are about to find out what is truly heavy. We have looked at the geology, and the geology failed us. We have looked at the archaeology, and the archaeology gave us myths about giants and iron machines. But there is one part of the legend we haven't taken literally enough. The Adig legends say that the god of the forge, Telepsh, didn't create the iron. He caught a star that fell from the heavens. He trapped a piece of the sky and buried it in the earth because it was too hot, too heavy, and too dangerous to be left out in the open. We interpreted that as a metaphor for a meteorite, a rock falling from space. But what if it wasn't a rock? We tend to think of the universe as being made of the same stuff we are. Carbon, oxygen, iron, silicon. We assume that if something falls from space, it's just a rock that traveled a long way. But the universe is a violent place. It creates materials that defy the laws of physics as we know them. It forges elements in the hearts of dying suns that make gold look like styrofoam. In this segment, we are going to explore Hypothesis B. We are going to abandon the idea that this is an ancient machine built by humans. We are going to explore the possibility that the Caucasus Anomaly is a foreign body. We are going to ask, what if the Earth has been shot? To understand what might be buried 4 miles beneath that valley, we have to talk about density. I want you to hold a lead ball in your hand. It feels heavy, satisfyingly heavy. Lead has a density of about 11 grams per cubic centimeter. Now imagine a material where a single teaspoon weighs 1 billion tons. That material exists. It is called neutronium. It is the stuff found in the core of a neutron star, a sun that has collapsed under its own weight until the atoms themselves are crushed out of existence, leaving only a soup of neutrons packed so tight that there is no space between them. If a piece of a neutron star, even a fragment the size of a marble, were to drift through space and hit the Earth, it wouldn't splash like a normal asteroid. It wouldn't just make a crater. It would be like a bullet hitting a block of butter. It would punch through the crust. It would punch through the mantle. It would keep going until it settled deep in the core, or until the friction of the rock finally slowed it down. The skeptics will tell you this is impossible. They will tell you that a neutron star fragment would explode, or that it would pass right through the Earth and come out the other side. But there is a middle ground. There is a theoretical state of matter called strange matter, quark matter. Physics tells us that under extreme pressure, matter can shift into a state that is stable, hyperdense, and incredibly magnetic. Let's look at the Caucasus data again through this lens. We have a gravity well that is too intense for normal rock. We have a magnetic field that spirals vertically into the ground, and we have a thermal anomaly. The ground is cold. If there is a fragment of ultra-dense, non-terrestrial matter buried down there, it would act exactly like this. It would possess a gravitational field disproportionate to its size. It wouldn't need to be a massive city-sized sphere. It could be an object the size of a car, generating the pull of a mountain. And the cold? Extreme density creates extreme order. Some theories suggest that exotic matter could act as a heatsink, absorbing thermal energy from the surrounding rock. It creates a thermal shadow. So, picture this scenario: 12,800 years ago. The Younger Dryas boundary. We know this was a time of cosmic violence. We know comets were breaking up in the atmosphere. The ice caps were melting. The world was burning. Amidst that chaos, a single fragment of a dead star, or perhaps the core of a dense, heavy metal asteroid that originated from a shattered planet core, slams into the Caucasus Mountains. It hits the soft sedimentary rock at hypersonic speed. It doesn't detonate on the surface like a nuclear bomb. It penetrates. It shears through the limestone, through the granite, driving 4 miles deep into the crust in the blink of an eye. The mountain range above it snaps shut like a healing wound, burying the intruder instantly. The iron heart isn't a machine, it's a bullet, and it's still lodged in the wound. This hypothesis explains the shielding effect that has baffled the survey teams. Remember the surveyors who said their drills deviated? The pilots who said their compasses spun? If you have a hyperdense object, it creates a magnetosphere of its own. It repels standard matter. It twists magnetic field lines. We have been trying to scan it with radar, with sonar, with LiDAR, but those are terrestrial tools designed to look at terrestrial matter. Trying to scan this object with radar is like trying to take an X-ray of a black hole. The energy doesn't bounce back. It gets eaten. This brings us to the most terrifying part of Hypothesis B. If it is a foreign body, what is it doing to the environment? We talked about the silent forest, the animals avoiding the zone. Radiation is the obvious answer, but the Geiger counters in the valley don't click. The background radiation is normal. But there are other kinds of radiation. There are other kinds of influence. If you have a massive gravity distortion, you are warping the geometry of the cells in your body. You are warping the flow of fluids. There are reports, anecdotal but persistent, from the Soviet era. During the Cold War, the Soviet military was intensely interested in this region. They weren't looking for aliens, they were looking for strategic bunkers. Declassified documents hint at a project codenamed Object 22. Soldiers stationed in the valley for extended periods reported chronic nausea. Time distortion. They would go on a 2-hour patrol and come back 6 hours later, swearing only minutes had passed. This is exactly what happens when you are near a massive gravity source. Time dilation. The clock on the wall ticks slower than the clock outside the valley. The gray time. The locals speak of isn't just weather, it is relativity. The people living near the anomaly are living in a slightly different time frame than the rest of the world. Now, let's combine this with the GPS failure. The GPS satellites are failing because they rely on a synchronized clock. They rely on the Earth being a specific shape. This object is changing the shape of the Earth, not the physical shape, but the gravitational shape. It is pulling the fabric of space-time tight, like a knot in a bedsheet. And here is the kicker. The knot is getting tighter. The pulse that the Arrow 7 detected, the fluctuation that suggests the machine is waking up. In the foreign body hypothesis, that isn't a machine turning on. That is the object moving. Heavy objects in the Earth's crust eventually sink. It's simple physics. If you put a steel ball in a bucket of honey, it will slowly, over years, sink to the bottom. The Caucasus object has been stuck for thousands of years, likely held in place by the friction of the continental plates pushing against each other. The compression of the mountains held the bullet in place. But the plates are shifting. The stress is changing. If that object slips, if it drops just a few hundred feet deeper, the shockwave won't be an earthquake. It will be a gravitational shear. Imagine the gravity under your feet suddenly doubling for a split second. Buildings wouldn't fall over, they would be crushed flat. Birds would be pulled out of the sky. The air itself would be compressed into a shockwave. The pulse was a slip. The bullet is coming loose. And this leads us to the wildest, most unsettling possibility of all. We've assumed the object is dead. A piece of rock, a piece of star. But there is a sub-theory within the astrophysics community called panspermia. The idea that life didn't start on Earth, but was brought here. That comets and asteroids are the delivery systems for biological data. What if the object isn't just a rock? What if it is a container? The geometric precision of the anomaly. The square edges could be artificial. Not a machine built by humans, but a probe sent by someone else. A probe designed to survive an impact. A probe designed to bury itself deep, wait for the civilization on the surface to mature, and then signal home. The GPS network is the first time in human history that we have wrapped the planet in a coherent electronic field. We have surrounded the Earth with radio waves. Maybe the GPS signals didn't just find the anomaly. Maybe they activated it. Maybe the noise. We are blasting into the ground. Our radar, our cell signals, our navigation pings acted like a wake-up call. The natives have reached the space age. Initiate protocol. The iron heart of the legends might not be a stabilizer. It might be a beacon. And it's currently powering up. This explains why the establishment is so quiet. If the governments of the world realize that there is an active extraterrestrial object buried in a border region between major powers, that is not a scientific discovery. That is a national security nightmare. It explains why the data is scrubbed. It explains why the survey drones are lost. It explains why the scientific journals refuse to publish the paper on the impossible gravity. Because if you admit it's there, you have to do something about it. And what can we do? We can't dig it up. We can't blow it up. We can't move it. We are like ants building a colony on top of a landmine. We have to walk very, very lightly. So, where does that leave us? We have a location that defies physics. We have a history that speaks of star gods and iron cages. We have a present-day reality where our most advanced navigation systems are being blinded. And we have a future that is uncertain. In the final part of our investigation, we are going to pull all these threads together. We are going to look at the end game. If the anomaly is a machine, can we use it? If it is a foreign body, can we survive it? And if it is a beacon, who is coming to answer the call? We have reached the edge of the map. Now, we have to decide if we are brave enough to step off into the dark. The GPS says, signal lost. But the truth is, we're just starting to receive the real message. We started this journey at 35,000 feet. We started with a drone flying a perfect straight line, guided by the most sophisticated navigation network in human history, only to have that line snapped by a ghost. We have descended from the silence of space, through the blind spot of the atmosphere, down into the crushing weight of the geology, and finally, into the dark mythology of the deep past. We have looked at the evidence. The gravity well that defies the density of normal rock. The geometric borders that defy the chaos of nature. The magnetic shielding that blinds our sensors. And the pulse. The heartbeat of a dormant giant that is beginning to stir. Now, at the end of the line, we are left with a choice. We are left with two competing realities, and neither of them is comforting. Door number one, the ancient machine. We accept that human history is not a straight line of progress from caves to skyscrapers. We accept that thousands of years ago, a civilization existed in the Caucasus that mastered physics in a way we are only just beginning to understand. They built a stabilizer, a great iron heart, to rivet the earth to the sky, and they left it running, burying it beneath the mountains like a nuclear reactor encased in concrete, waiting for the day it would be needed again. Or, door number two, the star in the mountain. We accept that the earth is a graveyard for cosmic violence. We accept that a piece of a dead star, a fragment of hyperdense neutronium or strange matter, punched a hole in our planet 12,000 years ago. It is a bullet lodged in the spine of the world, warping space and time, bending the very laws of physics simply by existing. Which is it? Is it a machine built by forgotten gods? Or is it a piece of the universe that fell from the dark? The terrifying truth is, it doesn't matter, because the result is the same. Whether it is technology or geology, the Caucasus Anomaly proves one undeniable fact. We do not know our own planet. We live on the surface. We are like moss growing on a rock, convinced we understand the stone because we have touched the outside. We draw our maps. We build our cities. We launch our satellites. We declare that we have conquered the Earth. But the Earth is deep. The Earth is 4,000 miles of crushing heat, pressure, and mystery. And every once in a while, the thing in the basement knocks on the floorboards to remind us that we are just guests. There is a concept in navigation called the circle of uncertainty. When a pilot loses their fix, when the GPS fails and the radio goes dead, they draw a circle on the map. The longer they fly without a signal, the bigger the circle gets. They could be anywhere inside that ring. Right now, humanity is flying inside the circle of uncertainty. We think our map is perfect. We trust the blue dot on our screens with our lives. But the data from the Caucasus shows us that the map is a lie. The grid is bending. The clocks are drifting. And the Caucasus isn't the only blind spot. If you zoom out, if you look at the global picture, you realize that the glitch in the matrix is spreading. Look at the South Atlantic anomaly off the coast of Brazil, a massive region where the Earth's magnetic field is failing. Satellites that fly over it have to shut down their systems or risk being fried by cosmic radiation. NASA calls it the pothole in space. Look at the Dragon's Triangle in the Pacific. Look at the silence of the Zone of Silence in Mexico. These aren't isolated incidents. They are pressure points. They are cracks in the windshield. And we are driving faster and faster. We discussed the possibility that our technology, our radar, our GPS signals might be waking the anomaly up. That we are poking the bear. Think about the arrogance of that. We have surrounded the planet with a cage of radio waves. We have turned the Earth into a noisy, buzzing hive of digital information. If the Caucasus Anomaly is a sensor, if it is a receiver, what is it hearing? It is hearing a civilization that is loud, chaotic, and powerful. It is hearing a species that has split the atom and reached the moon. Maybe the pulse wasn't a malfunction. Maybe it was a status update. The surface is active. The moss has learned to transmit. If the iron heart is a defense mechanism, what is it defending against? Or, more frighteningly, who is it signaling? The beauty of the uncharted mysteries is that they don't give us answers. They give us questions. They force us to stop looking at our phones and start looking at the horizon. The next time you pull up a map on your screen and you see that little blue dot hovering over a street, take a second to doubt it. Remember the Arrow 7 drone. Remember the pilot fighting the stick at 35,000 feet, watching his instruments lie to him while the ground pulled him down. Remember that gravity isn't a constant, it's a suggestion. The Caucasus Mountains are still there. The fog still clings to the silent valley. The compasses still spin. And 4 miles down in the crushing dark, the anomaly is still waiting. It is heavy, it is silent, and it is watching the sky. So, I leave you with this final thought. We spend billions of dollars looking for glitches in the simulation. We look for alien megastructures in deep space. We look for ghosts in the machine. But the biggest glitch isn't out there. It's right here, beneath our feet. The map is not the territory, and the territory is waking up. I'm your host. This has been Uncharted Mysteries, Decoded. If you have a theory, if you believe it's the ancient machine or the star bullet, tell us in the comments. And if you've ever experienced a moment where the world didn't match the map, where the compass spun and the silence fell, we want to hear your story. Don't forget to subscribe, because the world is full of blind spots, and we are going to find them all. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and never trust the signal blindly. Good night.